Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 18 of Right to the Source. My name is Robin Harrison and I'm here as ever with the Luigi to my Mario, Mr. Ed Birkin. Ed, how the devil are you this week?
I'm good, and I 100% get your reference. I was a fan of the Mario Brothers when I was younger.
Fantastic.
I
So
had an original NES, Nintendo.
you had an original NES.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a Game Boy. You know, the ones where you'd have to change the batteries halfway through a car journey.
Whoever said you were technically illiterate? You were an early adopter.
Yeah. I had a Sega Master System, but then it never really went on. I never got the SNES or any of the better ones or the Mega Drive. It was very early door stuff. And a Wii. I'm actually pretty good at Wii bowling.
Are you?
Yeah.
I mean, the Wii's kind of a computer game for people who don't like computer games, isn't it?
Possibly. I've actually got, so I've played it. I played it a few months ago, GoldenEye on the N64, and I seem to remember...
That's quite cool. Yeah, that's actually quite cool.
I seem to remember it being a lot better.
Really?
I mean, the graphics are horrific.
At the time, though.
At the time, it was amazing.
Yeah. And then there was Donkey Kong mode where everyone had massive heads. Everyone looked like... Seriously, no, I remember it. One of my friends when I was younger had a N64, and I remember vividly he put on what was called Donkey Kong mode. Everyone had massive heads, and he owned it, so he was very good at it. But I was rubbish at it, and then when I had a massive head in the game, it was just very easy to kill me, so it was just basically him killing me of an afternoon.
Well, we don't want to delve down into too much into the upsetting stories of your youth.
No, let's leave that, and let's talk about gambling data. So last week...
We can also talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
And there I was just trying to breeze by the fact that you were the fandom. Like next week, you're going to be painted orange.
Look,
or something.
I think it's important to research the team. I'm an Oilers through and through. You know, give a shout out to the Jags. First game of the season, a victory. Things are looking up. Yeah, I think we've got a chance in division. I mean, we've got no chance of winning the Super Bowl. Well, they said that about Leicester City in the Premier League, didn't they? So, you've got to be there. I've got tickets to see them on the 19th of October. Is it the 19th? Great weekend of sport that weekend. They have the 18th. I am going with Clarion's equivalent of Ron Weasley / Steve Sidwell, who's a Charlton fan. I'm going to be in the weigh-in watching Wednesday away at Charlton and then watching the Jags against the Rams the following day.
Wow.
It could be an extremely
That's an incredible weekend for you.
End of sport. And 12 days since Wednesday last lost. So unbeaten in 12 days.
Unbeaten in 12 days, wow. I mean, usually people talk about being unbeaten in 12 games, but 12 days. When did they last play?
That'll be the 2-0 loss to Swansea approximately 12 days ago. The international break, we can regroup and see what happens. Home against Bristol City on Saturday.
My local team, South Bristol.
Anyway, this isn't a podcast to talk about sports, is it? Let's be honest.
This isn't a podcast to talk about the depressing low-quality teams that you follow.
I don't look at it as depressing. Is
it character building?
People just support. I mean, if you want to be depressing, you should be a Miami Dolphins fan. That one is shit. Anyway, but we won't get into the NFL. No, I think there's something quite nice about supporting a team where a victory or even sometimes a point, a draw means something. Going where you're just expecting to win week in, week out. And, if you don't win, a bit like the Oilers, if you don't win the Stanley Cup, you're going to be disappointed. It's tough because you expect to win every game. So I don't think you get the same highs.
Are you turning against the Oilers now?
No, I'm not turning against them. I'm just saying that I've got high hopes for them. For Sheffield Wednesday and the Jags, it's, any victory is very, very positive.
Yeah, any win is a plus. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Stat of the week. It's not sports related. We're going to get into gambling.
Yes.
The stat's actually been out for a while. There was an article written by a young Kyle that kind of brought it to the fore. So the SPA, Ministry of Finance or regulator data in Brazil, gave the number of active unique players in H1 2025 at 17.7 million.
17.7 million.
When they say unique players, you assume these are actual unique players, actual accounts, because with all the all the verification you need, biometrics. They can actually see if it's the same player,
Yeah.
playing on multiple accounts. So that equates to 8.3% of the Brazil population, or we look at an
Wow.
adult population, 10.6%. So I think that just goes, we'll put that number into context. Netherlands, for the onshore market, it's about 5% of adults have an account. In the UK, about 20% of adults have an account. Brazil's kind of in the middle where you'd expect, towards the bottom end as it's newly regulated. But I think that kind of goes against this whole idea that gambling is kind of, pervasive across the whole population. Now, look, there's nothing about problem gambling, and obviously any number of problem gambling is too much. There will be some elements of it, whether it's legal or illegal.
Yeah,
But
of
in
course.
terms of the population who gamble, the adult population, at least with legal sides in Brazil, it's rhetorically, it's like this mass issue throughout it. I think is now kind of, should be challenged by numbers, because that's clearly not the case.
That's very good. Do you want a story of the week?
Only if it's interesting, Robin.
It's a very interesting one. So Matt Ribeltowski from our US team, obviously I've talked about the work that he's done in the Matt Bowyer case before, but if you look on the site from last week, there is just a few tidbits of one of Matt's conversations with Bowyer. So it's worth a read because ultimately what you're kind of getting from this is there's been this big national scandal. There's been this, kind of very high profile athlete, and Matt is talking to the person, who's kind of almost kind of like the start of the ripple effects. And it's a really interesting interview because it's the way that he's portraying himself, Matt Bowyer. It's really interesting, and obviously there's going to be a lot more to come from that. It's definitely worth a read. Really interesting and really excited to see how that develops. So that is my story of the week. Now,
is Matt your favourite journalist?
I don't have favourites.
You seem to use a lot of his stories.
No, I've talked about Matt, I've talked about Jess, I've talked about Kyle. Nicole is also an excellent writer. I would also, say, like in particular, one piece of Nicole's that just always sticks out is the interview with Vikhouse, and their transition away from being a monopoly and how they compete. I think that's a really interesting piece. And we've also got a new writer who's come on board, Pat Evans, who's already doing some great coverage. And of course, the legend that is Frank Legato, and that US team is obviously expertly marshaled by Adam Candy. So we've got a really strong team.
Really, given the amount of names you've named, I really hope you haven't missed one off because they're going to feel really upset.
No, they're the writers.
I've
I've
got to
got...
remember all of your children, isn't it? And then if you forget poor little Jimmy...
Weirdly, the name Jimmy has new connotations for me because I watched 28 Years Later at the weekend, which won't give any spoilers. Yeah, it goes a bit mad at the end. But anyway, enough about what we did over the weekend. And
I didn't talk about what I did over the weekend.
you talked about what you were going to do in a future weekend.
Yeah. This weekend, I was working on the Turkish lottery market. I did some other stuff. And I was just actually trying to mute my mic because there's some noise outside.
I wasn't going to ask why it sounded like there was an articulated lorry going by.
And it appears, I think it's recording for the internal mic. So I've now got this mic in front of my face that I don't actually think is being used.
So it's just a stunt mic?
Just a prop. Yeah, it's great. Hang on. It's literally doing nothing.
Yeah, so anyway, let's talk about data. So we promised last week we would talk about Groupe Partouche and we would talk about the Georgian, as in the country, market. So let's start off talking about Groupe Partouche because timing-wise, it's actually quite a good time. Obviously their results came out a few days ago. You're the data guy, so I'll let you talk through that in a bit more. But I think it's quite interesting in where growth has been coming from, for that business, because obviously the casino in Cannes and this new casino in Benin. And that kind of brings me to quite an interesting question. One of the things we've been discussing internally is the transition of, kind of Spanish countries into that Latin American market. You think of Codere Online, you think of Cirsa. These companies are making plays using the kind of like shared language and some shared kind of cultural elements to make a splash in that region. Do you think we could see French operators doing the same in Francophone Africa?
Maybe.
Thanks for your contribution. Anyway, do you want to talk about the Partouche quarterly
Can we see
results?
French operators do it in Francophone Canada?
Oh no, he's having a stab at it. Let's see.
I mean, I suppose the bit that the first obstacle is in general and not in every market. But if I were to try and split Africa into a couple of buckets, you have the more northern Francophone Africa, which tends to really still be kept as a lottery-led monopoly compared to the Anglophile, kind of more southern side of things, where they
Anglophone, not
Anglophone. Yeah, good. That annoys me. Yes. So now I need to get myself back. I hate being corrected for grammar and language. It's just embarrassing. But well done, you. So yeah, they tend to be more open markets. So the problem is, if you've got the lottery and PMU who are kind of actually running the gambling industry in these markets, then there isn't a market for them to get into. If they do they have an advantage there? Potentially, I don't know enough about it, but I wouldn't have assumed there was the same kind of cultural overlap as perhaps there is with kind of Spain and some of the Spanish-speaking Latam. I don't know. I suppose you've got Portugal and some of the Portuguese-speaking ones as well, potentially, and Angola. Groupe Partouche, 44 casinos across France.
You're doing well with the language today.
Yeah. Well, we should have recorded this yesterday when I'd done my vocal training, but you said you weren't prepared. 44 casinos across France, Switzerland, Belgium, Tunisia, and since early 2025, the Republic of Benin. So France has 38 casinos out of 202 in total, and the GGR from these 38 casinos was 634 million euros, which is the second highest behind Barriere, just 788 million euros, but just from 25 casinos. And it owns one of the 7 gaming clubs in Paris. What do you reckon the split of slots and table games is for Groupe Partouche?
It's an interesting one, kind of across the whole business or across France?
France.
So I would actually argue it would skew heavily slightly heavier, I should say, in favour of table games.
Okay, so you're saying more than 50% table games. 18% table games, 82% slots. So that puts an average slots of 13.7 million per property. Okay. And as we briefly touched upon last week, I think, there is a quite punitive tax rate. So there's a progressive GGR tax on slots per property. So the average of just under 14, and clearly some are going to be above that by quite a bit and some will be below that. Between 11 and 14 million euros GGR, the tax rate is 72%, and above 14 million, it's 83.5%. So, I mean, what you're getting from these marginal revenue from there is pretty heavily taxed.
Yeah, but Partouche is also making some moves online. I mean, obviously, I think it's live in Switzerland.
So it is online, but I suppose as we touched upon last week, the question is, how well set would they be in the French online casino market if it were to open up? So, we just got some new French numbers out. We've changed how we become calculating our illegal market. Make sure we take the total market rather than we had this grey market before, a lot of crypto casinos, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we have about 2 billion euros, just under 2 billion, but it's going down a bit this year, 1.7, 1.8 billion euros in France offshore, most of which being like casino, because you obviously have online sport regulated. So there's a big potential market, but, our Partouche, given their land-based presence and how well known they are, are they still really well set up to compete with the operators in the market who already have players signed up through sports and poker, who already have the online brand name?
Well, you could argue, though, that they are making moves to try and put themselves in a position where they can do something here, because they've got Switzerland, and I'd be interested in that, where they kind of sit in the kind of like market share in Switzerland. And there was also that agreement with Betson in Belgium. Betson obviously acquired Bet1st in Belgium. That got them into the sports betting market, but they also partnered up with Partouche for an iCasino launch. And that sort of partnership is an interesting one, because essentially Partouche is, with these kind of markets with a large French-speaking population, whether that's Switzerland, whether that's Belgium, is starting to build up, kind of capabilities and a presence. I mean, do you see that as potentially testing the waters for the eventual launch of iCasino in France? Because obviously, you know, one of the things we've discussed before is there is a real desire among the casinos in France to take a big chunk, if not all of that market.
Yeah, that, and also just diversifying their revenue stream, for
Mhm.
to digital stuff. How do you see it? So, okay, you've got Partouche and Barriere who will be big players, you'd assume, given they're the two biggest operators in France online. Then you've got Unibet, BWin, PMU will be kind of pushing hard in the gaming side.
FDG, I mean, they've, you know, obviously acquiring kind of Unibet,
So,
Kindred slash Unibet.
what market share do you think would be realistic for a Partouche in France?
Well, I suppose part of that comes down to whether that in-person database converts online. Because as you say, these online first operators have built up, you know, customer databases through sports betting, through online poker. But I suppose really the question is whether that existing database from that property level database can migrate online.
Yeah, and whether can you do cross channel loyalty cards and bonusing, etc. I don't know about that. In answer to your question, because you didn't give me a heads up beforehand, in terms of their share online,
In Switzerland?
24 million euros in 2024 percent market share with the Casino.ch brand partnered with Mayrin Casino.
So in terms of positioning, where does that put them in the rankings?
That would put them out of 9, is it? No, 11. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. That would put them 5th out of 11.
It's not bad.
No, but it's 7% market share. Yeah, let's say they can do that in France. I mean, it's a pretty sweeping assumption, but 7% times, let's say the market's going to grow when it opens up. So let's say you're looking 2.5. Let's just call rough numbers. Online casino of 2 billion. 140. Don't know why I used an Excel for that. 140 million revenue. At the moment they're doing, what do we say in France? 634. So it's meaningful. But if they were to feel that is going to harm their land-based business, is it something that necessarily want? I suppose you can look at the Netherlands. It's difficult to really. I don't really believe. I've seen all these LinkedIn spats and dicks on whether online cannibalizes land-based casino in the US. I don't think there's much. I get the theory behind it. I don't think there's much hard evidence. But in the Netherlands, would you say that Holland Casino benefited from having online land-based down a bit? But actually, how much would land-based be down regardless? Because you've had the increase in tax and other regulatory change. So you just don't have the comparable. You can see what it did before, but you don't know what would have happened if the online opened up. So
Yeah, of course.
I think,
And the online was
yeah,
very separated out in the Netherlands.
yeah. But I mean, it's. I think it's got to be a positive for them. The problem is it just opens up more potential competition, doesn't it? So yeah, I think I'd agree they are well set for if French online casino opened up. However, it goes back to, I think it's a very good point you made, which surprised me somewhat. Are they able to use their player base and things like that? Because to be honest, they're competing against people who, through the sport and the poker, who already have a huge player base of loyal customers who they can now, if they can just cross-sell the online casino product to, actually Partouche, Barriere, they're starting at a huge disadvantage, because having a retail customer base that you can kind of try and sell your product to is very different to having someone who's already signed up who is an online gambling player who plays poker with you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, have we exhausted Partouche? Do we now talk about Georgia?
I think we've probably exhausted our few listeners sometimes.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
More people watch us than listen to us.
I'm not sure if I like that. I don't like the idea of being watched or listened to. I'm not used to it. Let's talk.
Don't worry, they're here for me, not you.
Oh yeah. They're here for Luigi, not Mario. That's correct.
I've never seen them do plumbing in any game. In fact, I was actually thinking about the Mario Brothers the other day.
Okay.
Yeah. So, some women wear dungarees, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a fashion thing, you see it.
Lucy and Yak, it's kind of dungarees and boiler suits. That seems to be a thing.
Lucy and Yak.
That's the name of the company.
What is?
There seems to be this trend of people wearing dungarees and boiler suits, and they're almost always made by a company called Lucy and Yak.
But you don't really see guys wearing dungarees.
Not so much these days.
And then I was thinking about like who would actually wear dungarees and what they kind of use for, because I thought mechanics, but I was like, actually most mechanics just wear coveralls because you want to cover. Farmers wear coveralls. And then the only thing I was thinking was like who actually wears dungarees.
Well, you could have waders.
Huh?
Waders, for fishing.
Yeah, I've got waders. They're not dungarees. Yeah, I wear waders when I need to wade.
When the mood takes you.
Well, if I'm doing stuff at the pond at home and I need to put them on, or if I'm going fishing. Yeah, like dungarees. And I thought, the Mario brothers. And okay, he was a plumber. Now I've never seen a plumber in real life and recently wear dungarees. But it's like, what job is there where you would generally wear dungarees to work nowadays?
That's a very interesting point.
I mean, this is the kind of shit that I think about when my mind's just trying to go off data. Why would I own a pair of dungarees? What use could I have for it?
They've had their moments in fashion.
Yeah, I don't do fashion.
I mean, honestly, what I always think about is the film of The Grapes of Wrath. That's what I always associate dungarees with.
Real idea.
But it's based on the Steinbeck book. There was one of the characters in that was always wearing dungarees, and that's what dungarees makes me think of, the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression. And they were farmers. So farmers used to wear dungarees.
Yeah, of mice and men and stuff like that. So yeah. US farmers, I get. But in the UK, I can't think of any profession where you'd wear really well.
Yeah. Anyway, I was trying to think of some connection to the Georgian gambling market, but I can't. So, Georgia, a national dish, a khachapuri, a capital Tbilisi, obviously not attempting the population size because that's just always a bit embarrassing. So tell us about the size of that market. What sort of revenue, like GGR, is it generating, and where does that kind of place it in the kind of pantheon of European gambling markets?
So, I mean, it's got population of 4 million, so adult population of, I've got a baby 3. So it's not very big. The land-based, 800 million Georgian lari. It's almost entirely gaming, so it's a very, very small land betting and lottery. But that's $300 million. Yes.
Okay.
Onshore online, 1.8 billion gel, $670 million. So what's that? So $1 billion total, 70% online. And then offshore, another 370 million gel. Sorry, $1 billion gel, so $370 million. So 65% onshore.
Okay.
Now, it seems a small market, but actually it's over 3.5% of GDP, which is very large. And in fact, it is the largest percent of GDP, percent of GDP of any country we cover, and compares to the global average of just 0.6%.
Well, I suppose part of that is down to somewhere like Batumi. There's a great article, I think it was from 2022.
Was it from?
No, Matt didn't work for us at that point, so it was done by our Asian editor at large, Mohammed Cohen. And I think if you look up Black Sea Vegas on the and iGaming business, you should be able to find it. But that is essentially a real kind of tourist hub, pulling in guests from Turkey, from Israel, which is, real kind of like a bit of a kind of playground. So that is quite an interesting, kind of like tourism hub. So that would kind of suggest why it would probably help kind of increase the be such a large percentage of the GDP.
Yeah, but again, land's still a smallish bit, so that does obviously help. I mean, what's land $300 million dollars over 1.4 or something. But yeah, it's just. I mean, it's 6 times the size percent of GDP of what you are seeing in average for the markets. It is popular over there. Data-wise, so how do we get that? So we get data on market turnover. There's no splits. And so it's actually very tough to know the size of the market just from what's reported. Okay. However, what you can do if you're willing to go the extra step is you can download the financial accounts of all the listed online operators in Georgia. which obviously we do because we do that level of analysis. And so you get revenues by operator, by product from their financial accounts. So this shows Crystalbet was the market leader in 2023. The problem with doing this is they have to put it through the equivalent like Companies House in the UK. So there's a delay between filing accounts and getting it. So the data isn't as up to date as regulated data. But 2023, Crystalbet, which is owned by Entain, was market leader with 25%, followed by Ajara which is owned by
Flutter.
Well done, with 20% market share, and Crocobet, which has around 20% market share as well. So only 2 companies have submitted their 2024 counts, so we'll be updating that in the coming weeks.
Okay, so it's interesting. So Entain is essentially the market leader, but Crystalbet was also, I suppose, after that review, that strategic review a few years ago, the one part of the business they were actively looking to divest. I'm not sure if those plans have changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, so all they make. So I mean, to be honest, I can't be bothered to try and open their accounts. But just looking ballpark, they're 25% based on what we think for 2024. It's about $165 million US dollars revenue. But they can also look elsewhere. So Jara Bet, there's where did they bloody do it? They moved into, was it Azerbaijan?
I think it was Armenia.
Armenia, is it? So that. So they're looking into using these brands into other markets. But yeah, Ajara Bet and Crystalbet were really 1, 2 as Entain, Flutter thought it out, but Crocobet's been the one that's been growing. Why despite that, why there's still a decent offshore. The legal gambling age
25.
Was
for locals
in 2021, and government workers and those receiving government assistance, I assume means welfare, also forbidden from gambling.
Yep, but for tourists, I think the gambling age is 18, so that's obviously in person.
Yeah,
but
and it's interesting on the gambling advertising. So since the 1st of March 2022, all forms of gambling advertising, TV, online, billboards, etc., have been prohibited. You can tell I'm reading that bit from my notes because I can actually say the words. The only exception,
sponsorship,
sports sponsorship.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting if, any other markets perhaps follow that, given the importance of, in a lot of these countries, of gambling revenues to sports sponsorship and as a way of promoting the onshore operators, but without loss of TV advertising. On the flip side, you could argue that having such linking between sports and gambling, is that really what you want to show, and should that be the only way you see them?
Yeah, well, it's an interest. I mean, we're using interesting a lot again. I mean, it's essentially flipping a lot of what we see on its head. I mean, generally it will be some form of limited TV, kind of above the line advertising, but sports sponsorship is what's being targeted. But so it's hard to know. It seems like a very kind of, it's a unique way of doing it. I'm really not sure if there's any other markets do something similar. But it's quite interesting on raising the minimum age for gambling from 21 to 25. That seems at a glance a bit extreme, but then you think about how under 20s are being treated in other markets, like whether that's the UK, the Netherlands. I mean, that's just really, I suppose that almost kind of think about when that happened, 21, 22, that's almost kicking off that trend of under 25s essentially being the new minors.
And particularly in the UK, they're reducing the voting age to 16 in the UK, are they?
There's talk of it.
Because, Labour wants to do it because young people are liberal and more likely to vote for Labour, so keeping them in power.
I don't think any political party is covering itself in glory these days, but let's not get into all that.
Oh, a mess. And there's talk about potentially increasing the age to 21, or have I made that up in the UK?
No, I mean, that's something that a few groups are calling for. In the US, obviously it changes depending on where you are, but I mean, 21, it's the age, it's the legal drinking age.
In the UK. But I mean, my kind of view is, if you're saying someone can be trusted enough to vote, surely they can be trusted enough to gamble. If they're not.
Well.
So it's like, oh no, we need to have specific to protect people who are under 25 for a certain level in the UK. But 9 years beforehand, their brain's good enough for them to be able to vote and make a decision on who runs the country.
Well, actually, funnily enough, I can see the rationale in giving people age 16 and over the right to vote. I think it would have been. I wouldn't have trusted myself at 16 to.
Neither would I. I think it's ridiculous. A 16-year-old has no idea about anything.
No, I would say that by giving them the right to vote, you are bringing it into line with a lot of other countries, and you're also engaging people with their future. So I would actually argue that that makes sense. Whereas I think
they just don't. They have no clue about anything. A 16-year-old, unless it's about TikTok, they don't have a clue. And the fact their vote is going to count on stuff that they know nothing about. I mean, you could argue most people who vote know very little about most topics. I know very little about most topics in the UK. But no, I mean, let's do marketing on TikTok. I mean, I think it's a joke.
Well, it's what a lot of the political parties are doing, and it does seem to be effective. I think, I mean, maybe it'll take a while, but essentially these people will be more engaged in their future, as I say. Whereas I think with gambling, with drinking, there's potential for misuse. And also when it comes to disposable income, people at that kind of younger age have less of it. So there is potential for them to run up debt or fall into,
I don't disagree with the last bit, but I'm sorry, you now just made me angry about the idea of 16-year-olds having a view about anything important.
Old man yells at cloud.
I mean, possibly. It's weird. The people go, old people shouldn't have votes. It's not going to affect. It's more important for younger people because decisions are going to affect them for a lot longer period of life.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think kind of younger people.
Okay, so what about the fact that in general, in most societies, over time, elders have been the ones who have viewed to kind of lead them because they're wiser and have seen stuff and know things. So I would rather have someone who's 60, 70, 80, don't be too ageist, but someone who's got experience in life and seen things, who is making decisions because they know about it, even if it's only going to affect them for 10 years rather than affect someone 50 years.
I
worry that... trust a 16-year-old to do anything. I wouldn't even trust them to pick up my dry cleaning. If you're running a country.
I mean, they're not running a country, they're having a view on it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think with different groups, there's going to be a level of entrenchment in their views, and what has previously worked might not work. And I think that could be potentially damaging. I think it's worth having a broad church. It's worth having a wide range of views, because essentially an election is reaching a consensus on an issue. These are the people to do it. This is how an issue should be done. I mean, that's how democracy works. So I think kind of bringing more people into that to build a better consensus, ultimately, what's the problem?
Why 16 then?
Because that is the age, I'm pretty sure that is the age of consent and the age at which they can serve in the military. It might be older for the military, I'm not sure. But anyway, now, before we turn into...
You've made right. Anyway,
before we turn into a really bad version of the rest of politics, I think it's time to wrap things up. So what are we going to talk about next week? Let's start with
next week I'll probably have some more facts as to completely isolated incidents that aren't informed about why 16-year-olds know nothing.
Okay, right. I look forward to that. I'm sure
when we're doing it, because I'll be at SBC in Lisbon, so we can do something, well, I was going to say slightly less professional, but who knows. Right, companies. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, if you actually went onto our website, you could probably doctor this and work out what you need to say to get to a certain company, but I know that your preparation would have got nowhere near that. So a number
keeping it organic.
1 and 12.
12.
Number between 1 and 5.
5.
Are we doing operators or suppliers?
Operators.
It's gambling adjacent. Zynga, so more social gaming. You want to go for real money gaming?
No, let's talk about Zynga. That's quite interesting. Earlier on in my career, for a magazine called Social Casino Intelligence, I covered Zynga, and that free-to-play casino and poker games, I think, is quite interesting because you can almost draw parallels with the level of essentially another kind of generation of gambling equivalent products emerging in the US. So I think it might be quite interesting to look at these two things in tandem.
Yeah, we only have data 2022. It got bought by Take-Two Interactive, which we do actually have. So I suppose we're going to have to talk about them as well.
Okay. They do Grand Theft Auto, which was originally done by a Scottish company.
Which is played by 16-year-olds who believe that everyone should be able to go around just assaulting people and stealing cars and vote about it.
Okay.
Next, random country. Let's see. Bhutan,
Don't know much about gambling in Bhutan.
Congo,
Reasonably small market, we could talk about that.
or we've got Mauritius.
Mauritius, I mean, it's mainly, well, it's a lottery monopoly, isn't it? It's Lotto Tech.
Why don't we talk? Because we probably won't have loads to say.
About both of them. Let's talk about Mauritius and Congo.
Mauritius and Congo.
Yeah.
And then we'll do very quick about Zynga and Take Two. Yeah. So just capital of Congo.
Brazzaville.
Yeah. Capital of Mauritius.
I don't actually know.
Port Louis.
Port Louis.
Pretty sure it's pronounced that, not Port Louis. Currency.
Is it Mauritian dollars?
Mauritian rupee.
Rupee, that.
National dish.
Imagine it's something to do with fish.
Dal puree. Stuffed, flatbread stuffed with chana dal, but yeah, lentils. And fun.
Yeah.
I went there on holiday in 2023, I believe.
That's not the most fun fact I've heard.
No, I was going to say it's the last place I went on a proper holiday, but that's just not true.
Speaking of which, I understand you'll be on holiday seeing the sights in Lisbon next week.
I won't be on holiday. I will be working. If anyone wants a meeting, please reach out.
Where will you be working?
Probably won't have put this out by then. So you need to qualify next week. That means you need to have this out tomorrow, Friday.
As the day that I always put these out.
Okay. What will I be doing, sorry, in Lisbon? You know, seeing people, spreading the gospel of data.
Can I have some pastel del nata?
But that's the
custard tarts.
Yeah. It's a bit sweet. Yeah, I'll have one of them. I'll try a bit. I'll share one with someone. And I'm actually going to look around the Benfica Stadium.
Are you?
I have got a presentation I'm doing there to some Brazilian Payment Providers Association, and then IBEA, International Betting Integrity Association. It's got a 20th anniversary. So I've been invited to show the some drinks and look around the stadium. So that'll be good. Yeah, that's it really. I'm not going to lie, but I've got a few slots spare, so if people want to reach out, always happy for a listener to fill them.
Okay, well, enjoy that. We will find some time in your busy schedule in Lisbon to record next week when we'll be talking about Mauritius, Congo and Zynga. Interesting mix. So everyone, that is episode 18 of Right to the Source. We hope you have, if not enjoyed it, at least been able to follow it, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for listening.